It's day 6 of learning how to make animated movies. My name is Lardizabal, and my goal this year is to become awesome at pre-production, production, and post-production using writing, art, and Blender, 3D modeling and animation software. Because you clicked on this video, I can probably guess that you are into story, animation, creativity in general, and therefore you're my kind of people. I'm really glad you're here. Thanks. Let's get into it. Today is a storyboarding day. I'm working on a Kung Fu revenge story told in a fantasy setting, and yesterday I was kind of struggling with doing Asian architecture and buildings. So I thought, let's learn from Mulan. Let's go to Mulan, see if they have some cool stuff. So over here, see, this starts off, and this is, I know this is really scribbly, but that's okay. It starts off and the camera is zoomed in here. And so we got some like Great Wall kind of vibes with these little outposts and walking sections. But then the camera goes this way, and zooms out, and we see even more of how humongous this wall is. Then it zooms out and we see the character walking, and then the final zoom is that we see all this, but also this little outpost here. Yeah, I don't know if that necessarily was as helpful for doing Asian architecture, maybe a little bit because of these things in the posts, but I think it was very helpful for my brain and my director brain to think about camera moves and not an exposition shot. I don't know why I can't think of that name, but the wide shot where you get to see the whole establishing shot. There we go. So really helpful for an interesting way to do that. But what I'm really excited to share with you is what I did on the next page, which was still Mulan, just the next scene. I really love it. So I started off, and this first little sketch is like, yeah, whatever, not the best thing in the world. But I decided to go bigger and not worry about a frame, but just kind of draw all over the page. And so this is like multiple of these key poses of animation. So he's on patrol. Then a hawk comes and smacks his helmet off. What? And then you see the hawk flying up to this outpost here, and then you see there's a shot of it where it's up on the tip of the flagpole spear thing, and so that's wings and whatnot, and then you see the character looking out. So one, it was really fun just to get the flow of that. Like honestly, I feel like I really learned a lot just from having to draw out the little moments step by step. Both for storyboarding, but also just for animation in general. It was very helpful. But it goes even further. It's even cooler because I learned a whole lot about just drawing and character design by doing this. And apparently, you know, of course, it's Disney, especially like classical Disney. Like, there's so much to learn. So if we take a look over here, the first thing I noticed once I got to this point and I was looking at all these, was kind of this like diamondy, almost like stop sign shape of the head that is happening. And I was like, okay, that's really interesting. What else? And then I was like, okay, the nose is kind of got this angular shape going on as well. But then I started seeing like the connection between the eyebrows and the mustache. And it kind of reminds me, if you watch the other video, of this character, my character, where all the angles started to have this rhythm that you could follow, and I was seeing it here in Disney. This is like childhood me getting behind the scenes of how they draw and how they come up with characters at Disney. So freaking cool. But things I noticed. Here, let me get this. This is my pointer now. It was really neat to be like, okay, I was drawing the mask of the eye the other day, but I was just going from the bone. And honestly, that's still really helpful to setting the eyes. But for the eyebrows, particularly in a more cartoony style, I was like, that's the one level of mask. But then the other level of the mask is doing that for the eyebrows and then drawing them in. And that gives you the ability to go more realistic at times, like, and then starting to stretch here and then really starting to stretch over here. And it's like, oh my gosh, I'm that surprised that I, like, in real life, I can't stretch up my eyebrows up here, but it looks freaking cool there. And it was neat to see which parts of the character need to stay realistic. So the placement of the eyes versus the nose was really huge, but the eyebrows could be one of those places that you really stretch it and go crazy with it. But even down to like the widow's peaks, like I noticed that this line of the hair is like kind of pointed at the angle of the nose, and then the top of the ears is kind of matching up with the eyebrows, bottom of the ears matching up with the nose, and then it's like from the ear you just go straight up. It's almost very squarish, and then if you can place those two little hair wispies, then that gives you the line for like the hairline. And so there's so many elements of this design. I'm obviously excited about. I'm gushing over. If you look at this on the arm or the shoulders, it's like do the character and then foop, foop, and then just in a couple strokes, you see there's like this cloth, and then it goes into this armor. So here's the cloth over here, and then it's armor below. It's just so good. Like, I really honestly think for some of my storyboarding practice moving forward, I'm just gonna keep doing Mulan because there's so many other characters I want to know, like how they made those characters. And it was really neat to see, like, they're not perfect or whatever, but I wasn't just drawing these like trying to go line for line while watching the film. I was watching the film, I would pause, but I would first just notice like the intersection of the face. How is that angled? Where is it at? Finding my starting point that I like to use. And then from there, I really treated it like I was working for Disney. So I was drawing very sketchy, very loose, very gestural, and really focused on trying to get those big shapes for myself, based off of my first line that I did, instead of like, oh, their line is exactly this way, their line is exactly this way, which it felt really cool. It felt really awesome. I could probably go way further than this, but I'm gonna stop. I need to stop and I need to move on because I have more cool things to tell you about. Super impactful, learned a lot. Okay, and continuing on with my Blender learning and practice, I've been working on modeling a sword and shading it from a course, and I'd say I made a lot of progress today, and I'm so excited to show you. If you didn't know, the last time the sword looked like this, and now the sword looks like this. Yeah, so freaking cool. All right, first off, before we get technical, let's just take a couple moments to just like savor the awesomeness, right? I mean, look at the freaking scratches. Look at the runes, the glow, the metallic shine. This is pretty cool. Pretty dang cool. I am very proud of this. Oh, sorry for that view. Sweet corded handle. These little guys. Pommel rune. And also look at the craftsmanship over here with this, like, I don't even know what to call it, but it was really fun to figure that out. I'm so proud of it. I could keep looking at it forever. And maybe I will. Maybe I'll just stop everything I'm ever doing. I'm just going to stare at this sword for the rest of time. Except that's not true because I got stuff to do. So it was really neat to learn about this stuff down here, which looks like, insane, right? But it's kind of plug and play. I'm sure a lot of places I could screw it up, but it's really neat. So this is essentially almost like your properties panel in Photoshop or whatever, that you just get to play with things. Or if you're editing something on Instagram and you're like contrast and tint and whatever, like that's essentially what this thing is, but with some different options that you don't have in those. And then essentially what I'm doing with this is that this is just loading in an image that I'm then over here with mapping and texture coordinate panels that it says that I'm essentially projecting the other images on top of 3D surfaces. And then based off of the brightness and the darkness and whatnot, it will wrap around that image and make the final look, which is really cool. And that's essentially a lot of what is happening with the sword, is I'm projection mapping on the sword, the runes, the handle, everything else. And then I'm changing my other settings to get the different effects. How bright it is, the glow, the level of metallicness, and I don't know. It's freaking cool. It's very encouraging to kind of hit this point because before you get here, there's a lot of not being good at Blender, not being good at 3D modeling and stuff. And it's neat to have made this. And as you can probably tell from some of my drawing stuff, like I tend to go really sketchy in most things I do. So to make something that is more of like hard surface modeling, has to be very precise and symmetrical and whatnot. It feels like a big growth point for me, not just with Blender, but artistically. Like, I did that. I freaking did that. And today was also a story concept art day. I have been just kind of drawing different ideas of my characters, and mostly my characters and less environments and places, because I also keep feeling stumped when I'm working on visual development. I'm like, what to do? What's important to focus on? What's a method? What's a process that I can follow? So I bought this course a while back that I just hadn't really dug into, by this guy named Armand Serrano. I think I'm saying that right. But the cool thing is I worked on Mulan today, and then when I decided for story concept time, I was just gonna learn from the course. I go to the course, and it turns out this guy actually did visual development on Mulan. So I get to learn not only from copying and studying the storyboards and the movie, but I'm also getting to literally learn the visual development process from one of the guys that made it. Amazing. Too freaking cool. All right, so there's a lot of notes in here. And then while I was just listening to philosophical parts, I was trying to redraw the dude from memory, which is a little bit harder than, drawing straight from the movie itself. But that's besides the point. I will say, here's just a few things from my notes, and if you want to zoom in, maybe you can learn some more. But some of my favorite things from this course so far: visual development and design is more about problem solving and starting to understand and see the world than it is making pretty pictures, even if you make pretty pictures along the way. And that is something that intuitively makes sense to me and feels right. It feels good. And then down here, so these are kind of the big things that it's like the core ingredients of an awesome story or movie. Compelling story, appealing characters, whether that's like a pretty character or like a mean, ugly character, it still is just like, are they interesting? Can you sell this character? Can you really buy that they are what they are? And then believable worlds, and when that's less about being like realistic and more about being relatable. Even if this is a fantastical world, are there things within it that we're like, oh, I see myself there? They have to deal with that regular life thing too. Oh, but also dragons. Another thing I really loved from this course was just seeing some of his process, seeing some of the steps, the order of operations. But here he talks about identifying story needs versus wants. And this is not just like the story, this is more about, hey, based off of this is what the story section's about. Then in terms of like researching and building out props and environments and characters, what do we absolutely for sure need to research and start ideating on? And what is just like things you might be interested in? So an example would be like, if we were to reverse engineer that first scene in Mulan, where it's like, hey, it's like the Great Wall of China or something very similar to it. And then there's the character who's on patrol and the hawk and everything, and the helmet that gets knocked off and all that stuff. So if there was a little blurb that talked about that, then when it comes to the visual development side, you're like, okay, we definitely have to have the Great Wall, and then what that looks like, and we need to research what that is, how it works, how it's built, what it's made of, what it looks like, the type of armor, look up what a hawk looks like. And those are like the needs. Those are the things you have to develop. And then the wants are like anything else that you think would be cool to fit in there, that your brain goes to, that's like, oh, that would be really cool. It's like, first develop exactly what you need, and then flesh it out more in order to make it feel more alive and feel more like you. For now, on my story concept art days, for that section of my creative time, I'm just gonna keep going through this course and seeing this guy's methods and approaches. Then I'll be able to have like a structured way to develop my stories visuals and characters and environments and designs and all those things. And I think it'll probably come out way better than if I just were trying to wing it. So, okay, my general creative approach for today was pretty simple, but really awesome because it's Saturday and I have just so much time. Compared to a couple of the days that I had this week where I had very little time, it felt luxurious. It was just amazing. So generally speaking, I just worked on stuff and the goal is to wrap this all up before dinner. And then after dinner, be able to chill and watch shows or play video games or whatever. Also, I did something the other day that was an accident. It was a big mistake. Big mistake. So dramatic. It was a small mistake, but it has started something that was actually pretty good. Let's take a look. So originally, this whole sketchbook was just going to be focused on art practice and storyboard practice. But very quickly, I had realized that I just jumped in and started using it for story stuff as well. Yeah, I guess this was the first part, which is fine. You know, it's not a huge big deal. Like I could, you know, use this sketchbook that is all meant to be for story sketchbook stuff, but I haven't used this one at all. Like, this one is totally empty, so that'd be fine. But I think I kind of like that it's all in one, and I'll tell you why. I think similar to the way these videos are a way to truly document exactly what I'm doing and get to look back and see how I felt about stuff and what I was working on, what my, you know, exciting epiphanies were, what I struggled with. I feel like doing everything in the one sketchbook really feels like I'm going to have a similar experience. You know, I'm in a similar experience when I look back and think, oh yeah, that was that day and that was that day. And it is all just going to flow together and really make for an awesome book, not only to showcase my growth and how my stories evolved and my practice evolved, but I also feel like it's just as a keepsake. I feel like it's going to be really nice to look back on in a year or however long it takes to finish the sketchbook, and kind of really just see it as like a time capsule, which is really exciting. And yeah, I think it just is going to be, it's going to be special. It already is special. Like, it feels meaningful to me. Special. And that's why I'm just going to keep going with the one sketchbook. And then for this one, I'll change the date however long it takes to get to this one. I'll change the date on that, and this will be the next one. I actually have like some really small square ones coming, and I think those are going to be more for just getting to practice out in the wild. So, and that's my chance to kind of doodle in those as well as draw from life, which is going to be my everything else sketchbook. But everything in this one, and these ones that I use, I want it to be directly tied to my daily practice or my daily creation. Pretty fun. I'm really happy about it. Emotionally, especially attached to my creative life, I just feel really stoked. I feel really happy and really excited. Particularly in comparison to tired me yesterday, today feels light and also feels like I accomplished a lot. And while I know not every day is going to be the high, I think it's also good to celebrate when that happens. And today is one of those days. And so, cheers. Tomorrow specifically is what I call my prepping day. It's Sunday, and so what I do is across art and storyboard practice and story concepting and Blender and writing, everything, even this content. It's a prep day, so the goal is to gather resources or create tools or find tools, anything I can do to set myself up for an amazing week that feels joyful in the making of stuff and the practicing stuff, but also really productive and efficient. Effective. Goal is that each week I should not only be making cool stuff and doing things and getting better, but also that the process as a whole also improves. So you'll see more of that tomorrow, but I'm really excited and it's gonna be fun. And also, I just gotta say, if you made it this far in the video, you really are my kind of people. You're amazing, and thank you for being here. If you could sneak a Star Wars reference into your comment, then I'll know for sure that you're part of the final credit club, and I really appreciate you. You're amazing. Have a good day. See you next time. Testing 1, 2, 3. Beep beep bop. Ba 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 ba.